Caroline Jones. Tonight, a doctor who believes that the terminally ill and those with unbearable pain and suffering should have a choice about when to end their lives. For more than 2 decades, Dr Rodney Syme has been campaigning to legalise voluntary euthanasia. It's an issue that polarises the medical community. At the age of 80, Dr Syme says that time's running out for him to see the law changed, and he's decided to risk everything, even if it means going to prison. This is his story.
Apart from the time Dad spends with his family, I would say most of his other time is spent working with people towards helping them achieve or explore what their possibilities are towards their end of life.
Well, pretty good. That sounded tough.
He stood up to his own detriment, frankly bringing pain and fear upon himself. He stood up for people who don't have enough other defenders in society.
Over the years, I have counselled well over 1,500 people, and of those, probably somewhere around 100, roughly. I don't keep a count. I have given Nembutal or some other medication too. Essentially, as I say, to give them control of the end of life.
He's offered to give me Nembutal, and I just can't explain in enough words what enormous relief that gave me, knowing that I have access to this drug.
I guess the thing that concerns me about this situation is that, who is Rodney Syme to decide? Is Rodney Syme the one who decides now when people's life is not worth living or is worth living? Or, does he triage people into suicide prevention and suicide enablement?
Rodney clearly recognises the risks. Ever since he started, he's been, I suppose, interviewed by the police after patients have died.
I tend to interview you in relation to the offences of incite suicide and aid and abet suicide.
What Rodney has done is he has clearly, in contravention of the law, which says that it is illegal to aid and abet a suicide, clearly Rodney is prepared to go to jail for his beliefs.
I go through phases of feeling, well, I must do this, and then thinking, what the bloody hell am I putting myself into? It's like a yo-yo. But ultimately, my conscience simply tells me that this is something I have to do.
When marimba rhythms start to play, dance with me, make me sway.
Just before I became sick last year, I decided to take up dancing lessons again. I just love dancing.
Like a flower bending in the breeze, bend with me, sway with ease.
I met Mavis, and straight away there was some chemistry there, and she is a fantastic dancer, much better than me, and she has become my dancing partner.
Only you and my magic.
You stuff that up, doesn't matter.
He's a lot of fun on the dance floor, and he's very flirtatious, even if we're just friends. So he likes to be cheeky, and I suppose he brings out the cheekiness in me.
You know how, sway me smooth, sway me now.
You're going to lead me well. He's talked about when the pain becomes unbearable, that he doesn't want to continue. It's really sad, very heartbreaking, really, to be honest, to see, then he wants to go down that road.
I value life for every second that I can, and people might look at me and say, why in the world does this guy want to end his life? Because I probably look okay, but I've lost over 17% of my weight and there's no quality.
And do a flick on the back, a last and a finish thing, you know, like...
Who's leading this show?
Bernard clearly was very distressed and I felt he needed help, my help.
Dr Rodney Syme, I'm sure, is a humanitarian. You know, it requires a lot of guts to do what he's doing because this has a lot of legal ramifications for him that could really bite him on the arse.
Rodney has always been a bit of a rebel, despite coming from a conservative background.
Well, I came from a very privileged background. I grew up in a very large house in the suburb of Morwen with a huge garden, education and one of the better or best private schools.
Rodney was a good sportsman and he was also a good academic.
Rodney Syme's a urologist. Rodney comes from medical royalty. His grandfather was the founder of the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons and was knighted. His father, Bob, was a very highly respected surgeon. Rodney was definitely my first mentor.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. These are the ubiquitous renal cyst in the older person, which we find again and again and again, don't we?
His younger son, Rodney's generosity with his time to junior doctors is inestimable. When Rodney questioned a student or a registrar or a colleague, it was always something beneficial. Rodney would never put anyone down. I've never seen him raise his voice. I've actually never seen Rodney argue with anybody. He's beside himself, and I think I need another opinion.
This is typical multicystic disease.
Yeah.
And there's not a trace of an echo.
Rodney Syme is held in high regard by just about every urologist and most medical practitioners he comes into contact with.
On the far side?
Yet off his own bat, he saw that those of us who were actively treating prostate cancer weren't keeping records. Thanks to Rodney Syme, Victoria has a prostate cancer registry that's been going at least for 15 years. It's unique in the world.
In 1974, I had what I call my epiphany. I had a patient with cancer in the spine, which was pressing on the spinal nerves. Terrible pain, neuropathic pain. I could hear, as I entered the foyer of the hospital, her screaming from the first floor, and there was nothing effective that we could do to relieve her agony. That had the most profound effect on me. For the next 20 years after that, I thought very, very deeply. I studied the medical literature, the bioethical literature, and formulating my views, I began to make public statements. And as a consequence, complete strangers started to approach me.
What can we do for you?
I'm dying an awful death.
You're what, sorry?
I'm dying an awful death of cancer.
Steve Guest was a journalist and former political advisor who developed cancer of the esophagus.
Steve just looked dreadful, very, very confronting. He was just a skeleton with skin, loose skin draped over it. There was no flesh. He looked awful. His eyes were sunken. His organs stood out. It was like looking at an X-ray of a person.
How are you, Steve?
No, I'm not well, Rodney.
Not well.
Not well at all.
I had no alternative but to assist him. He adamantly refused palliative care. I gave Steve Guest an Embutal, which allowed him to end his life at a time of his own choosing. Good to see you again, mate.
Good to see you, my friend.
Rodney made a profound difference to Steve's life. It changed Steve's demeanour completely. He went from being angry and resentful and bitter to being much more relaxed, much more comfortable. Once he knew he was in control of the way he was going to die, the timing, the place, the manner, that sort of thing, he changed completely.
Esophagus, Rodney.
Steve had a wonderful relationship with Rodney. He described him on a number of occasions as his angel.
There are many cases in which I have persuaded people to take a different course. And that gives me more pleasure, frankly, than helping somebody to end their life.
Guinness, mate. Thanks, mate. And you know,
Byrne doesn't particularly want to die, but he knows the consequences of living the life that he's enduring now. It was only yesterday when I got down here and you started talking about your church service and the undertaker.
Yep.
And suddenly hit home. It wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
Suddenly it was spiritually serious. And I must admit, I had a bit of a tear when I went to bed last night.
Really?
Yeah,
God love you, mate. God love you. I've been told that I've got from 1 year to 4 years, and I all love my family dearly, but I don't want to live a miserable quality of life.
Byrne is extraordinary. How can you not love Byrne? Byrne's naughtiness and his sparkle is a quintessential part of his character. Despite the fact he's been married twice, he still enjoys the company of many, many ladies. Byrne was the managing director of Renai, an international Japanese company, had dealt in gas appliances. Byrne's enterprise and drive took the company from a position of loss to what they regarded in Japan as the Australian cash cow.
Hey, Benny. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Sonia, darling. How are you? Nice to see you.
You too. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks.
Yeah, feeling good.
About 3 or 4 months after we met, we were going out for dinner, and on the way there he was sort of gagging and wanted to vomit.
In August of 2014, I had this sore throat, so I went to my local GP and he thought I had an infection of the throat. And I saw this guy, that was early January 2015. He did a biopsy and determined that I had cancer of the tongue. And then my treatment commenced in March of 2015. 6 days a week for 8 weeks I had radiation, and then I had, I think it was 3 or 4 chemo sessions. I was fed via a peg tube for 5 months. It's just a dreadful experience. I started to think about euthanasia after I completed the treatment and realising that the pain was intolerable. I was a Vietnam vet, and I thought what I experienced over there was pretty tough. But being in Vietnam was like a walk in the park compared to the radiation and chemo and the side effects that you have.
We were in the same unit in Vietnam. If Byrne had said that his treatment for his cancer was worse than his time in Vietnam, then it must have been bloody hard.
I would much rather have a limited life, however long that may be, rather than an extended life of 1 year, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, where they tell me I'm going to end up with more pain than I have now, and I'm just not going to do that. So, Sue, what happened with that storm that came through the other day?
Well, knocked over all those trees. Bernard and I are very close, even though he lives in the city and I live in the country. Bernard is full of life, and he'll always be full of life, and he'll fight right to the end, I'm sure. But the pain will get that bad if it does. If they can't treat it, he will end it when he can't take the pain any longer.
Come on. I've read about other options for self-euthanasia, but by far the best one is Nembutal, and the most peaceful way to do it. You're getting old like me, hey? Nembutal is a drug which vets use to put down animals. You can, if your animal is sick, you take it to a vet, and the vet will put the animal down using Nembutal because they don't want to see the animal suffer. And we don't have access to the same drug. I've tried a couple of times to purchase Nembutal overseas, and both of them has been a rort, and it's cost me $2,300 US. So, and of course this is a very stressful period when you're trying to secure this drug, knowing that it's illegal to import. So you're wrestling with that, and also wrestling with the fact that do you exercise one of these other ugly options?
Bernard saw me on television and he got in touch with me to see what advice I could give him and what help I might be able to give him.
Come on in. We're down here. I met Rodney Syme on the 13th of November 2015. I'm told that it's not curable.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Bernard's a very careful man. He'd given the matter deep thought. By the time he contacted me, he'd had his disease for some 9 or more months.
The pain that I've been through, I wouldn't wish on anyone. One of my oncologists said to me, it's bordering on barbaric what they do to you. Now, and I'm talking about the radiation and the chemotherapy, and the constant pain, and the sweating of a night time, the vomiting, restless legs, you name it. But if this gets progressively worse, then I want the option to be in a position to take my own life.
Yeah.
I think people do fear pain at the end of their life, and they fear loss of control. Physical pain towards the end of life is treatable. We have very, very powerful drugs available to us. I have never, in the 13 years that I've been practicing in big hospitals, had a patient die screaming and in pain. Never.
Psychological, I think you can understand that. You must have been suffering a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress.
I've never had a single patient beg me for death towards the end of their life.
Not have my loved ones see me go that way. I'm certainly not going to go into any palliative care or into a nursing home. I want to die here under my own terms. When I've asked Rodney about Nembutal, he's indicated that he will supply me Nembutal. And wow, that was a great relief.
There's not a legal problem with Bernard taking his own life. There's not a moral problem. The thing that I have a problem with is giving doctors licence to enable people to take their own life, because it fundamentally turns upside down what our roles as doctors are, which is to help people to have tolerable lives. I think physician-assisted dying, that is providing a drug so that your patient can die, it's euthanasia. It is killing. I mean, you're giving the person the means to end their life.
Bernard, I think, has accepted the situation, and one of the reasons he's been able to accept the situation because he now feels that he has control.
I don't know what's motivating Rodney Syme. He strenuously believes that what he's doing is a good thing. I don't really know what motivates him.
All right, so here's the coffin room. There's different woods, there's different colours.
Hey, now. Now you're talking. Wow. No, that's more like... Is that,
okay.
Is that really a coffin?
That is a coffin. That's from our express range, and
that is
obviously something
fantastic.
That is very personal.
Very personal. In fact, that's very me. I have a place in the country of Meetung, and that just looks like some of the scenes when I'm sitting in my boat, actually. That is excellent.
A very large number of the population, I think, just tend to accept that, well, the doctor knows best. But people like Bernard, people like Steve Guest, these are people with strong individuality who want to question and want to have control. And so they're the people who do go out and ask the question.
Mr. Collins, can you tell us the reason why you came to hospital?
I just haven't been able to breathe easily. It's just...
I'm not religious at all. I'm an atheist. I have formulated my views from my practice as a doctor. Do you have family to help you?
They're all in the States.
I see on my ward constantly people who are living with the idea that they are worthless, that they are a burden. We see giving people care now as a cost rather than, as a mutually enriching act. And did you notice any palpitations in your chest or your heart? I think in the euthanasia debate, everyone's searching for a line beyond which we can all agree that someone's life is not worth living. And I think that line is always arbitrary, and it's not a line, it's a cliff.
The reason I had the party, Rodney Syme said to me after I first met him that it's important to say goodbye to your friends. I'm 70 years of age now, and I've had a fantastic life surrounded by fantastic friends and family. And Mavis actually is a minister of the church, and she will be conducting my service whenever that will be.
So I'm going to try and make him a saint.
That's impossible. Thank you. And what I did on Saturday night was absolutely fantastic. The best day I've had in 11 months, that's for sure. I certainly did feel the love that was in the room.
You've had a huge impact on my life and made me the person that I am today, and I love you heaps, and I'm going to miss you.
And he's definitely been a mentor in my life and a very significant part of my life. And I love you.
I've got a lot to thank him for, and not just on the business front, but he's become a really great friend to me.
Wow. Now, this wasn't orchestrated, by the way, just for your information. Most of my friends know I'm going down this track where I will take Nembutal when the pain becomes unbearable. How long that will be, I don't know. The last 11 months has been a horrendous journey for me, and at this juncture I'd like to thank Dr Rodney Syme and to enunciate in appropriate words to thank him for his help, direction and wisdom and level of comfort. Frankly, it seems highly inadequate.
He's been publicly challenging the law for 2 decades now by assisting people to die. Now in Victoria, aiding and abetting a suicide will get you a jail term, or can get you a jail term of 5 years. And what he's been saying to the police is, charge me.
Before I ask any questions, I remind you of the warning. You're not obliged to say or do anything unless you wish to do so.
He's wanting to provoke a court case in the hope that a wise judge might make a judgment which clarifies the issues and clarifies the circumstances under which it would be legitimate for a doctor to do what Rodney is attempting to do.
I've been very, very fortunate that my family have been extraordinarily supportive. I think it must have been stressful for them at times when they've seen me plastered all over the front page of the newspapers and having policemen march into home and interview me, and having to go to Victorian Police Headquarters for criminal interview, and at the worst occasion have my fingerprints taken, which was one of the most distressing experiences I've ever had. You don't look as though you're travelling too well, mate.
No, but now I've certainly had better days, mate.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you that I've been at the Medical Board, Health Regulatory Agency, this afternoon, as a result of reference by your general practitioner. And they interrogated me about my relationship with you
I am pissed off that my GP has reported Rodney to the regulatory authorities.
The essence of the GP's complaint was that Bernard had discussed with him what end-of-life options he might have and told him, the GP, that I had discussed providing him with Nembutal. This allegation is essentially correct. The regulatory authority decided that it would put a condition on my practice and that I was not to indulge in any medical activity which would have the primary purpose of ending somebody's life. Do you feel that I'm a risk to you?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely
That's what they maintain?
Absolutely.
They say that I present a serious risk to you.
Rodney was certainly trying to help me, and I don't think it's right that that man has gone out on a limb to help people who are in genuine pain and want to end their life peacefully, and it's put him in a very difficult position.
The way the law is written is vague and opaque. I, for the life of me, can't see any real distinction between me providing palliation for Bernard by giving him oral medication, which he may or may not take to end his life, and palliative care providing him with palliation by continuous injection, which also has the effect of ending his life. At this stage, I haven't decided what I will do, but it'll be a huge battle with my conscience to do anything other than what I have been doing. But I'll not desert Bernard. I will continue to support him in every way that I can. Just how that pans out remains to be seen.
What I was thinking is this one, Mavis.
Okay.
Bernard and his very good friend Mavis spent a lot of time selecting the music for his funeral.
I wanted you for life.
This one?
Yeah.
You and me.
He's really...
In the wind.
This week I saw my oncologist, and this is what he told me, that I've probably at best a year. But having said that, it could be longer than a year, but I really don't think they know.
It's hard to understand.
Mavis, she has said that she will sit with me and offer me a blessing before I take this drug.
It's not easy to say goodbye.
I'm a Christian minister and a civil celebrant. Yeah, I'm hoping for miracles, whether we call it spontaneous remission or whatever. He says, am I not being realistic? And I'd say, well, I'm a person of faith, and while he's breathing, I have hope.
All that time we had to spend.
In the beginning, I was very much against euthanasia as voluntary suicide. What's opened my mind with Bern is that I can see that he's someone who has given his best at living and he's giving his best shot at surviving, but it doesn't mean I will want it to happen. I miss him terribly.
And if I listen to my heart.
We're a very close family, but some agree with what I'm doing, some don't. And I hope that they forgive me for what I'm going to do. But let's hope that's a long way off yet.
It's not easy to say goodbye.
When marimba rhythms start to play, dance with me, make me sway, like the lazy ocean hugs the shore. Hold me close, sway me more. Like a flower bending in the breeze. Bend with me, sway with ease. When we dance, you have a way with